Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou ngā manahiri, no mai, haere mai. Haere mai ki tēnei whare kara ki a te atua, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. We welcome you into this circle of community. Welcome into the space made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for 119 years. Whether you're here because worshiping with us is part of your routine, or whether you feel like a year ago our country was stopped in its tracks by deadly hatred, or out of a need to remember those who died or were injured in Christchurch, on this morning we gather to proclaim that we belong to one another and that others belong to us. Broken hearts are welcome here. Anxious spirits are welcome here. Minds worrying faster than a racing engine, uncertain what to think. Stubborn egos that sometimes trip us up, cementing us to opinions. Fragile shell-shocked souls. They are welcome here. Yours, mine, and everyone else's. Not because this community will fix it through easy solutions or the right way forward. As a liberal religious congregation, we have something far more fragile and far more powerful than that. Our need to be together. No irony intended. Our need to reconnect to the life-giving sources that move within and among us, and our need to make one another a little bit braver and wiser before returning to the service of life. We welcome you, especially if you're a visitor or just passing through or seeking a spiritual home. Know that we are pleased and honored by your presence. You should also know the worship service is the prelude to morning tea. It is our sacrament of hospitality. Please join us. It won't be complete without you. However, due to COVID-19, we ask that you are conscious of maintaining social distance during that time. My opening words are by Thomas Rhodes. Feel the earth beneath your feet as it supports you. Feel the love of this community as it surrounds and enfolds you. Feel your breath as it flows in and out of your body. Listen to your heartbeat. Listen to your heart. And how is it with your heart? Does your heart feel whole, shielded by intellect, cocooned by reason, closed to feeling? Or is it broken, fragile to the touch, brimming with the pain of loss? Or has your heart been broken and healed so many times that it now lies open to the world, knowing that true growth comes not without pain, that tears may wear down barriers, that we may carry the hearts of others, even when our own is too heavy for us to bear. None of us has an unblemished heart, not one. For such perfection can be found only in death, and we who are alive still have much to heal. So let us give thanks for the broken places in our hearts and in our lives, for it is only through such brokenness that we may truly touch one another, and only through touching one another that the world may be healed. But when you touch each other, remember it's elbows. Let us give thanks for the brokenness that we share. To face the world's shadows, a chalice of light. To face the world's coldness,
a chalice of warmth. To face the world's terrors, a chalice of courage. To face the world's turmoil, a chalice of peace. May its glow fill our spirits, our hearts, and our lives. Please join me in the covenant of our congregation in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God.
I'm sure that not long ago I thought there was no such thing, no such day as everything you think is wrong day to celebrate. I was wrong. I have no idea who comes up with these days, and no one knows who came up with this one or why on this date. March 15th. My guess is the Ides of March was chosen because Julius Caesar thought Brutus was his friend right up to the moment the knife entered his back. So how does one celebrate this faux holiday? According to the anonymous founder, this is a day to avoid making decisions, and by all means avoid saying, I think. It is also a good day to spend time contemplating everything we don't know or think we do but don't. We can take time to laugh at ourselves for things people used to think were true but aren't. No, blood is not blue until it comes in contact with the air. Yes, goldfish have memories. No, the earth is not flat. No, if you swallow your gum, it does not stay in your body undigested. No, dropping a penny from the top of the Empire State Building will not kill someone it hits on the footpath below. Yes, chameleons change color, but not to hide. They do it to communicate. It's their way of talking. Yes, it appears hair and fingernails keep growing after death, but they don't. The tissue around them shrinks. The 5-second rule is bollocks. If you drop food on the floor, eat it if you wish, but it'll still have germs. Those are some of the oldies but goodies. But we can't help ourselves. We keep finding new things we think are true, but aren't. You can believe it if it is on the internet. I think that's an actual quote from Abraham Lincoln. Trump will make America great again. Being gay is an illness that can be treated. Jesus walked on water and died for our sins. Men are smarter than women, we wish. White privilege isn't a thing. We earned everything we have. The poor are just lazy. They wouldn't be poor if they'd pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. Climate change is a hoax. Unitarians can believe anything they want. And the latest one, during a COVID-19 pandemic, you can't have too much toilet paper. What is it about us human beings that we seem most eager to think something is true that isn't, if it's racist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, science-defying, mean-spirited, or just plain dumb? That is why we need this holiday, and it is not wrong to think so. It is an unofficial holiday gently reminding us that we are all imperfect. It prompts us to accept that there are a lot of things we are wrong about and encourages us to spend some time correcting them. The world around us is complex. There are things we don't know, and there are things that we think are right, but are in fact wrong. Those things could range from something as simple as a piece of trivia, and yet Rachel is never wrong about trivia. I don't know what. I've quit betting. Or something more complicated, like our attitude towards others or our moral outlook. Donald Rumsfeld, I think, captured this truth best. There are known knowns. These are things we know that we know. There are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things that we know we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns. There are things we don't know we don't know. This is the perfect day to acknowledge that not everything you know or do is right, and that you have a lot to learn about things around you. However daunting and scary it may seem, accepting one's mistakes should not be considered a sign of weakness. Studies have shown that people who accept their mistakes are treated with more respect than those who are hesitant to take responsibility for their actions. In fact, it is widely accepted that admitting mistakes and ignorance and making an attempt to admitting mistakes and ignorance and making an attempt to fix things is the mark of a creative and successful person. While it is good practice to admit when one's wrong, it is also important to know that no one is perfect and that everyone makes mistakes. So we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves or on others. The bottom line is this: making mistakes is not the problem. Not taking responsibility or making an effort to fix things is. 1 year ago today, a gunman entered 2 of our mosques in Christchurch to act out his hate with semi-automatic weapons. When the rampage ended, 51 of our fellow New Zealanders were dead, and another 40 were injured. Today is a day to remember them and grieve for them, their families, and yes, ourselves. It is also a day to reflect on what we thought was right on March 14th, 2019, that a day later was proved very wrong. We thought we were exempt from terror attacks that were plaguing the rest of the world. We thought that white supremacy wasn't our problem when it was there all along, hiding in plain sight. We thought that Muslims were the enemy and the ones who had to be watched. We thought we were an accepting and tolerant people, but only because we had not listened for 5 years to Muslim groups like the Federation of Islamic Associations and the Islamic Women's Council, who had told us repeatedly how commonly they are harassed in this country. And they had told us how their appeals for help were ignored by both national and labor-led governments. Sadly, the harassment hasn't stopped, but many of us have stopped turning a blind eye to it. Keeping our balance in the difficult times we have endured just this year is important. Which is why, after being humbled by our wrongness today, we get to bounce back tomorrow. Tomorrow is everything we do is right day. Of course, that is a ridiculous proposition, but it is a reminder that a lot of what we do is right. We saw it a year ago. We came together as a community. The first and most important thing that was right was the forgiveness offered by the Muslim community. Certain things in life destroy everything, said Imam Alabi Latif Zerullah. They split friends, brothers and sisters, societies. He was not speaking about terror. And one of them is not forgiving. Nothing good can come from that. Getting angry opens the door to dark things. The second most important thing was the empathetic and compassionate leadership of our Prime Minister. And the country followed suit with vigils, flowers, prayers, financial generosity, and acts of solidarity in non-Muslim women choosing to wear the hijab. We had been brutally shocked out of our wrongness. Blinders fell from our eyes, and we faced who we were as opposed to who we want to become. We took first steps by embracing the virtues of resolution and speed with swiftly changing gun laws and with the Christchurch call, a working process to persuade the barons of social media to accept a duty of civil decency and respect. Simon Wilson, an opinion writer for the New Zealand Herald, wrote yesterday, "We have learned pride as well, that we have a parliament and a prime minister whose instincts were compassionate and acted on, not twisted out of shape by opportunism and fear, and who took all this to the world." So it's a year later. What are we thinking is right today that may be wrong in retrospect? There are two important elections this year. One in the US will be filled with rancor and lies. It may be impacted by interference from foreign countries. The other is ours. We may think today ours will be much better. Later, we may discover that the demagoguery of people like Shane Jones, who is trying to out-Trump Trump in his attacks on Indian students, has appeal. We might think we are more tolerant than the others, tolerant of the others in our society, when already Simon Wilson observes that Chinese New Zealanders report other people walking widely around them on the street, thanks to COVID-19. Noodle houses and yum cha restaurants have emptied out, unlike all the pizza and pasta places. Some schools went through their own awkward moments, thinking it best to exclude children who were, or maybe just seemed, Asian. We maybe think that we have made gun violence more difficult with the passage of reasonable gun laws. We would be wrong to think that won't change, as the National Party that once supported them seeks to roll back some of their requirements. We would not be wrong to think that there are many people in this country looking for ways to act out their hate. But we would be wrong to think there aren't some. A young man was arrested in Christchurch this month after terror threats were made against the Al-Noor Mosque. University of Auckland students began their semester last week to discover someone had stuck up white supremacist publicity. Vetted images are smeared across the internet. We would be right to think we are not what we were a year ago, but we would be wrong to think that we are now all we could be. Maybe tomorrow we will do what is right. Amen. Well, it occurs to me that these are things that you might want to have a conversation about. But if we do that, I can't pass around the mic. So if you want to speak to it, that microphone, I think, is safe. So I invite anyone who would like to come forward, who thinks they're right about something today, perhaps, or things that they're struggling with that may be wrong.
I'm still Alex. Towards the end of Clay's talk, I was reminded that a young man was attacked on the North Shore recently. He was from a Korean family, but he was born here, and he was with friends who looked like him. But a group of other boys decided not only to taunt them and torment them, but to beat him up quite severely. I really just don't understand this. I don't understand white supremacy. That word supremacy just doesn't fit with those people. I didn't do anything to get my light-colored skin, did you? No, nothing special. I always think it's the most ridiculous thing to make any sort of judgment on skin color. Heavens, it's just not important. It doesn't matter. That's all I can say.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Rachel. Speaking of unknowns, one of the things I learned on the 15th of March last year was that I had been quite smug about New Zealand. If you'd asked me on the 14th, was I smug, I would have said, oh no. But that I really was one of those people who didn't think it could happen here. Even though I knew that those conditions existed, I knew there was racism. I didn't know that you could get a semi-automatic weapon. I just kind of assumed our gun laws were quite restrictive because I thought we were a non-gun culture. And so it really was quite a shock to me to realise how much I didn't understand about the place we live in.
Hello, my name is Shireen. I wasn't able to come to the excellent series on Islam that was part of our adult education series. Was it last year, Clay? Yes.
3 years.
And certainly after the 15th of March last year, I really realised how very little I knew and understood about Islam. And just reasonably recently, in the last few months, I've read 2 books. One by the young woman a Somali woman who escaped her Somali upbringing and went to Holland, and she eventually became a member of Parliament there, and she wrote a book called Infidel, goodness me, 15 years ago. I've since discovered that there have been a lot of questions about the validity of the things that she said. But I also read a book on the woman who won, and I'm sorry, her name's gone out of my head. She won the Booker Prize last year as the first person to be offered the International Booker Prize. And this was about 3 generations of women in Islam. And that opened my eyes and helped me to understand some of the cultural overlays too in Islam. Also, I saw in continuing education at Auckland University that they're offering a course over 3 weeks on women in Islam. So that starts this Wednesday, and I'm really looking forward to that. Because I am confused about some issues, because there were 2 quite different perspectives offered in the 2 books that I read. So I'm hoping that I will be less ignorant about Islam and the position of women in Islam after I finish the course.
Islam is that somehow they all think alike. Just like Unitarians or Christians, you know. There are a wide variety of views and theologies. Join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the flame. The warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. For my closing words, let's turn something off here. Go forth in simplicity. Find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people.